Hello, everyone. Good afternoon to you all, and welcome to this webinar with iExpert in relation to ISO 42001, an overview of what is ISO 42001. So let's start our webinar right now. So let me first introduce myself to you for those who don't know me before. So actually, my name is Ahmed Fahmy. I am a kind of a principal consultant with 33 plus years of experience. And it is my pleasure today to join iExperts actually to provide this webinar to you. So these are kind of some of the certifications that I have already, and I do provide some trainings in, as you see, for 2001 lead implementer and lead auditor, as well as artificial intelligence professionals. Some of the certification that I hold today in order to foster those kind of AI governance environments that is respecting and empowering the fairness, trustworthy, and explainability and safe AI usage and solutions in our environment. So let's directly go to the content of this webinar today. The objective of this webinar is to walk you through an overview of what is actually ISO 42001 and why ISO 42001 is a required and one of the most, let's say, widely not acceptable but widely implemented and so many organizations around the globe. Let us deep dive into the content and the requirements of this kind of ISO requirements and best practices AI management system. Okay, so first of all, ISO 42001 is a kind of a new standard or a new framework that have been established or introduced first time by December 2023. Before that, it wasn't there. Just in comparison, 27001 first introduced like 15 or to 17 years back. So that's a kind of a new, let's say, release of ISO standard for 2001. And then by then, in 2024, actually, most of the organizations are actually getting some, let's say, overview, or they need to know more about what is really ISO 42001 requirements, checking how they can, let's say, implement it within their organizations, provide trainings and development for their employees and users within the organization itself, testing the water, okay, and so on and so forth. In the same time, in 2024, EU AI Act came into, let's say, enforced EU AI Act, I mean, in EU. So most of the organizations were checking how can we map the ISO requirements with EU AI Act and so on and so forth. Starting 2025, last year actually, we notice increasing number of implementations within the EU, within US, and maybe in the Middle East. And the first certifications ever in ISO 42001, if I'm not mistaken, that was released back to, I think, mid of 2025 or late 2024. Okay. Most of the organizations right now, like Microsoft, OpenAI, CrowdStrike, and others, are certified ISO 42001, and there is an increasing demand in reality for implementing and following this kind of best practices. Let's let's see why this best practice are received this kind of web or wide accepting implementations and training in the previous 2 years. Um, Before digging or deep within the ISO 42001, let me just walk you through the differences between the standard ISO 42001 and EU AI Act and similar. The standard like ISO 42001, NEST framework, and similar are those kind of voluntarily best practices. So it is not mandatory for any organization to follow the ISO 42001. But later on, we'll come to know that one of the best way to match or to, let's say, adhere or to maintain compliance with whatever regulations within your country, those who are related to AI, is through implementing 42001 standard. So the standard itself is a voluntarily. No one ever, no, let's say, regulatory authorities, no laws in any countries will come and enforcing you to implement for 2001. Instead, laws and the regulations are mandatory to be implemented, yes, but one of the best practice, as I mentioned, to follow the compliance is to maintain or to implement the ISO 42001. So this is the first difference between what is sorry, any question? Okay. Matthew, if I, okay, if Matthew, if you are not asking questions, would you please mute yourself? Okay. So okay, thank you. So standards are a voluntarily kind of implementation, but regulations is mandatory. You cannot avoid the EU AI Act, for instance. You cannot avoid those kind of PTBL regulations in Saudi and so on and so forth. But standards you can actually. Standards are a best practice, as we discussed before, while regulations is a governmental authoritative requirements you cannot avoid. Standards are flexible. You can select which kind of AI solution that you can put or you can implement or you can, let's say, put within the scope of the ISO 42001. But usually regulations comes with very less flexibility. You need to follow the same requirements as is that comes from the from the authorities in your in your country. So if the authority, let's say, imposing on you that to maintain all of the kind of customer-facing AI solution, then you have no options to exclude any of them, as an example. Okay. So as we discussed before, there are like a kind of overlapping, something like 80% overlap between ISO 42001 and EU AI Act, which means one, as I mentioned to you, one of the shortest approaches, quickest approach ever to maintain compliance with those kind of regulations, example EU AI Act, is through implementing the ISO 42001 within the organization. If I'm not mistaken, there is a kind of 80 plus overlapping between the ISO requirements and EU AI Act requirements as well. So why such kind of regulating or maintaining an AI governance is something that is very important and everyone is talking about. And a lot of organizations and maybe government are trying to regulate and to maintain governance over those kind of AI solutions we are using today. I'll just give you two real life examples, just two uh, to just to demonstrate to you how important and how critical is maintaining those kind of AI governance within our AI solution right now. So first one is this kind of this person. Okay, this person actually his name no, his name is Michael Smith. He was from North Carolina. He is a musician. What he did actually was something that is very amazing. He developed a song, okay, using an AI tool. This song that no one ever have listened to. He uploaded this song actually on the all of the famous, let's say, streaming platforms like Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Music, and YouTube, and so on and so forth. And then after that, he developed a kind of AI bot to continuously click on the like button. That's it. Okay. So we have an artificial music that is being liked or artificially listened to by bots, and then he was able to collect, let's say, $10 million from those platforms by maneuvering this kind of maneuvering techniques using AI systems and AI bots just to simulate and to let's say maneuver or to demonstrate that there are some this song actually is well populated and required, or there is an increasing demand to listening to this actually song, while in reality those kind of artificial demand was generated from an AI bot. Another example that is related happened also in US, that is related to the driving license insurance or car insurance. As you know, in each and every country, there is a need to, let's say, renew. Whenever you're renewing your car license, you need to maintain and renew as well the car insurance as well. So all of the sudden, one of the, let's say, old drivers within US found that the insurance claim, while he was renewing the car driving license, is increasing by, let's say, if I'm not mistaken, 300%. So there is an increase in the car insurance by 300%. And when he returned back to the insurance company, asked them why such increase in the insurance claim, they replied back that they actually they collected the driving behavior from his car, okay, through the car manufacturer company, and then they analyze the car driver behavior, and they believe, according to their rules, their style of driving or driving style is risky, so they decided to increase the car insurance in consequently. In this situation, we have those kind of car manufacturing companies who collected the car driving licenses through different sensors within the cars, and then they decided to sell it to a third party company like the insurance company without the knowledge of the car owners. And then the insurance company decided to utilize an AI solution to analyze the driving pattern of each and every car owners. And based on that, they decided to increase or uplift or to, let's say, put a premium on the car insurance license whenever the car drivers wants to renew their car licenses as well. These are two life examples on how critical and how important is to regulate the usage of the AI solutions in our life. I'm sure that there are so many other, let's say, life examples that ring the bell on the government side, on the different manufacturing and maybe system owners, consumer side, communities, and so on and so forth. Those who are actually rang the bell in order to build or to have or to design a kind of a governance framework for everyone to follow in order to maintain the trust and the fairness and to regulate or to control the associated risks, associated AI risks. By the way, those kind of AI risks are unique. They are not, we never have such risks before, as we will see later on. So from that perspective, okay, ISO 42001 come to fill that gap, come to set like a best practice or a kind of a framework for organizations, for users, for everyone to set the base, to set the stage. How can we use and build those kind of trustworthy AI solutions that comes with no harm to persons or communities while maximizing the benefit of using the AI innovative solution that we have today. Before we dig into the details of the ISO requirements, just for you to know, this specific ISO requirements are completely dependent on three different, let's say, angles that should be there within your organization before deciding to go to the ISO 42001. First, let's say angle, which is something like the having a current working information security management system in place. You cannot run and you cannot implement ISO 42001 if you already don't have any kind of information security system in place. When we say information security management system, that can be equivalent to ISO 27001, yes, or maybe others. So it is up to you to decide. It is not mandatory to have ISO 27001 as a prerequisite for 42001, but what is required is to have an information security management system in place, regardless of the best practice or the methodology that you are following. Why this is important? Because at the end of the day, 42001 is a kind of a software. Yes, it is an AI solution, but it is a software based at the end of the day. Even if you are using robots in itself is a software based. There is a brain that is software based. So making sure that this AI solution is secure is something that is very critical. The data that is this AI solution is dependent on is also maintained secure is something that is very critical and important. So the first prerequisite that needs to be there is a kind of information security management system. In addition to that, and because of AI solutions are mostly based or utilizing a kind of PII data, personally identifiable information data. Like for instance, when you are trying to use any chatbots on any website, usually they are asking you to identify yourself through maybe asking you to provide your email, maybe your, let's say, access credentials, maybe your customer ID, whatever it is. All of this kind of PII data needs to be maintained according to the data privacy management system. As well as the data that you will use typically for training, for let's say algorithms, validations, and so on and so forth. Those data most likely will have PII data as well. So having data privacy management system in addition to information security management system is a kind of a prerequisite for implementing 42001. In addition to that, having quality management system in place is something that is important as well. Why? Simply because, as you may know, that AI is completely dependent on data. So those kind of data sets used for training, for testing, for validation, for prompting, for whatever it is, they need to maintain a minimum data quality standards. Okay, so hence it is a requirement to maintain a kind of quality management system. So all of the data that you are using, whatever the stage you are using the data in during the AI life cycle, must meet the minimum predefined quality standards. Hence, you can guarantee the output of the AI solution at the end of the day. Those three different management systems controls in place should be exist before you start to go for implementing for 2001. Again, you can go for ISO 27001, 27701, and ISO 9001. Up to you to decide. It is not mandatory to follow ISO standards, but you need to maintain those kind of management system in place. Now, so let us go into more details about the structure of the ISO 42001. 42001 actually comes with a requirements that covers the both side or the both side of the coin. So whether you are a company who is developing an AI solution, there are some requirements for you need to follow in order to maintain a kind of trustworthy, explainable, safe AI solution. On the other hand, if you are a company who are using an AI solution, you are not developing anything, you are just acquiring an AI solution off the shelf, and then you implement it, operate it within your environment, still there are some other requirements that you need to take care of during the AI operation. So ISO 42001 is addressing the AI lifecycle on both sides, whether in the development lifecycle or in the operational lifecycle. From that perspective, if we look at the ISO standard itself is divided into two main parts. First part is what we call the requirements. Requirements is clause 4 to clause 10. So there are a set of mandatory requirements that each and every organization needs to implement and needs to follow in order to gain the benefit out of ISO 42001. In addition to the requirements part, clauses 4 to 10, where we will come to discuss in details later on, there is the other second part of the standard, which called annexes. We have four different annexes in the standard itself. Annex A, similar to ISO 27001, Annex A in 42001 comes with 38 controls. Those controls are covering as I mentioned to you, the AI lifecycle, whether in the development state, if you are a development company, or in the operating state, if you are just operating an AI solution. Then Annex B comes with a guideline, implementation best practices. It tells you for each and every control, what would be the implementation guideline? What would be the implementation best practices for you to use it as a reference during implementation? Then we have Annex C. Annex C is a kind of unique annex that comes with a list of AI unique risk sources. So you will come to know here what kind of different AI specific risks that might impact your organizations, in addition to some AI objectives as well. The last one is Annex D. Annex D comes with those kind of guidelines telling you how to integrate, how to interface the ISO 42001 with the previous um, three mentioned management system, like information security management system, data privacy management system, quality management system. So as we see here, we have a comprehensive set of annexes that comes with the controls, but also with the guideline on how to implement them. What are the unique AI risks, and how can you integrate the ISO 42001 with existing prerequisite management systems as we discussed before? Okay. Um, as similar to all ISO related standards, ISO is following the plan, do, check, act cycle, the famous one. So in plan phase, we have clauses 4 to 6. So clauses 4 to 6 is mainly focusing on how to prepare your organization or how to plan to implement the ISO 42001. Then in do phase, we have clauses 7 to 8, where you need to execute and implement those kind of activities, requirements within the organization. Then and controls as well. So in do, there are some requirements, as we will see later, and to implement the controls. Then check, which is clause number 9, which is measuring the performance. And there are several ways to measure the performance. We will see it later. Then clause number 10, which is act. Because we are humans, there is always be deviations. So once deviations happen, there is a need to, let's say, take actions. And there is always another need to usually, let's say, increase your performance and uplift your, let's say, achievements and so on and so forth. This is how the plan, do, check, act cycle, and how those kind of different clauses are distributed among this cycle. Now, so let us very quickly skim the requirements, high-level requirements of each and every clause. Clause number 4 is understanding the organization. Maybe someone might asking me, where is 1, 2, 3? Why starting from 4? In reality, there is clause 1, 2, 3, but 1, 2, 3 comes with a kind of introduction, kinds of terms and definitions, and so on and so forth. But the requirements itself that each and every organization needs to implement, and maybe it needs to be if you are taking an audit or you are auditing them, you need to audit them all as starting clause number 4 to clause number 10. Clause 4 to 10 usually comes with, they are a mandatory requirements. So which means it has to be implemented in full. You cannot select, you cannot choose which requirement that can fit your, let's say, scope and then implement it and then ignore others. No, you need to go for each and every close requirements and implement it within your organization. Similarly, if you are auditing an organization, you need to go for each and every clause requirements and make sure that there is enough evidences of such implementation within the organization itself. So clause number 4, understanding the organization. This is where you as a project manager or as a consultant or an operation director or whatever it is who is operating or implementing ISO 42001 needs to understand the organization and its context that this kind of ISO standard will be implemented. Why this is important? Simply because you need to define and agree with the management on the scope of the implementation, and hence you need to understand what kind of regulatory and laws requirements. So you need to make sure that the ISO standard will fulfill and will maintain compliance with the existing laws and regulations. At the end, you need to make sure that such implementation will add value to the business at the end of the day. So we are not implementing ISO standard just to take the certificate. Certificate in itself is a kind of attestation that you have added some value to the business at the end of the day. How can we add such value? This is what we need, what you need to determine within clause number 4. So 4 different requirements in clause number 4. First one is you as a project manager, consultant, or operation manager needs to understand the organization and its context through understanding the organization vision, mission, strategy, values, and so on and so forth. You need to understand the needs and expectations of interested parties. Interested parties as a terminology, this is equivalent to stakeholder. From ISO point of view, they are not using the terminology stakeholder. Instead, they are using interested parties. In this requirement, you need to know what kind of laws and regulations apply to you. You need to understand what are different stakeholders' expectations, like your employees, your, let's say, customers' expectations, and so on and so forth. Okay. Then in clause number 3, requirement number 3, this is where you need to determine the scope. In many organizations, they might decide to start with a very limited scope, then building the blocks right after. And this is one of the best approaches. So if you have, let's say, 10 AI solutions, one of the best practices is to start the first implementation with maybe 1 or 2. And then once you get mature with the requirements of ISO, next year or maybe next cycle, you can add the more AI solutions to the scope itself. Why? This is simply because usually those kind of ISO implementations comes with the major changes within the organization way of thinking and how doing their business. Such major change, you may need to test the water first based on a very limited scope, and then once these kind of changes are embedded within the DNA of the organization, you might at this time want to go and to elevate and to add more and more solutions to the system. This will become more easier for the success of the overall implementation itself. Okay, so these are AI management system, the last one, which is mainly making sure that those kind of requirements are embedded within each and every different process activity within the organization itself. Clause number 5 is about leadership and commitment. In reality, such kind of major change, ISO implementation, I mean, will not be able to get a successful stage unless there is an adequate and strong support from the leadership. From that perspective, leadership and commitment is something that is very, very critical and important to be exist. And this is clause number 5. And clause number 5 comes with 3 main requirements here. First one is leadership and commitment, which means leadership needs to demonstrate commitment to the ISO standard by attending, let's say, meetings, by following up on the actions resulting from the implementation or the operation, by reviewing the performance, by promoting the importance of the ISO standard 42001 within the organization, and so on and so forth. Second is AI policy. AI policy should be a document that needs to be approved by the leadership. It is understandable that leadership is not the one who should articulate or write down the AI policy, but actually they need to make sure that there is an adequate AI policy in place. They need to review it. They need to approve it. They need to make sure that this policy are being enforced within the organization itself. The last activity or requirements within clause number 5, that is roles and responsibilities. Again, it is not the leadership role or the CEO role to, let's say, draw the org chart and to write down the job descriptions and so on and so forth. That's correct and understandable. But they need to make sure that those kind of job descriptions, org chart, a line of reporting, segregation of duties, all those things are well implemented and well communicated within the organization itself. Typically, HR department is the one who should take care of all of these activities, but leadership needs to make sure that whatever HR has developed in relation to the line of reporting, the job description, the responsibilities are accepted, approved by the management, and as well as communicated to each and every person within the AI management system and the organization itself. Clause number 6, one of the let's say activities that usually reflect as an evidence, reflecting the implementation of the requirements number 3, roles and responsibilities, is having a RACI matrix in place. So having job description in place, having RACI matrix in place, anything that that is approved by the management and proved to the auditor or to the project manager that these are the accountabilities and responsibilities distributed among different stakeholders within the organization as a kind of an acceptable evidence of such implementation. Clause number 6, that is the AI risks. It is about the risk management, okay? We have 3 different activities here in clause number 6. First one is defining the risk appetite of the organization, defining the risk tolerance, defining the risk management methodology, setting the, let's say, risk assessment exercise in organizations, and so on and so forth. So having a risk management, risk assessment in place that are addressing the AI unique risks are the first requirement here in clause number 6. Number 2, within clause number 6, is to set AI-related objectives and making sure that every department and every stakeholder within the organization has a clear AI-related objectives he or she is responsible on fulfilling it. In AI objectives, we have usually a set of business level AI objectives driven from these AI business level objectives. There must be a subsequent or this objective needs to be cascaded down to each and every department and each and every one. So each and every one should know exactly what he or she needs to do in order to achieve his or her assigned objective, where once it is done, the overall business objective of the AI management system will be achieved as well. So making sure that the overall high-level AI objective is cascaded down among each and every person, stakeholder, and department within the organization is the requirement here in 6.2. Not only that, but in addition to defining and communicating the objectives, AI objectives, you need to set a plan how to achieve these objectives. So a plan how to achieve it is another requirement within 6.2. The last requirement in clause number 6, which is the planning for change, which means, as we discussed before, ISO 42001 is a kind of a major change within the organization. Having a robust change management in place to govern, to control this kind of changes is something that is very critical and important to be there. In reality, change management is, if there is a weak change management, this will be one of the main sources for incidents. So typically, if there are some unauthorized changes, this is where incidents are big are expected. Specifically, those kind of unexpected incidents are being evolved over time. So having a change management in place to manage and coordinate all of these changes resulted from the ISO implementation is the requirement here for 6.3. When it comes to, yep, this is a kind of, let's say, AI risk, as example of AI risk matrix, where you need actually to define what are the impact of each and every AI related risks and probability of that risk. And then you need to determine which of these risks are actually acceptable within the organization. Those who usually comes with low impact or low probability. Which of these risks are in the middle that maybe you need to continuously monitor its evolution? And which of these risks are critical to the business? So you need to take actions to minimize either the impact or to minimize its likelihood. Okay. Clause number 7 is all about support and resources. There are 5 different requirements here in clause number 7. First one is resources. Resources means top management needs to make sure that whatever required resources in terms of human resources, tools, financials, education, development, whatever it is, any kind of resources, GPUs, any kind of resources that is required for the success of the AI management system needs to be availed beforehand. Second is competencies. Those kind of persons like data engineers, LLM engineers, algorithm engineers, data quality management teams, performance management engineers, those kind of persons are competent. Competent here means they are skillful, they have the ability to execute and to run after their duties, and they are receiving adequate awareness and training while they are performing their activities. Third one is awareness. Awareness here is definitely for the team who is involved in the AI solution, and as well as the team or the users who are consuming or using this kind of AI solutions. Example, when you are usually using an AI chatbot, for instance, you usually receive a kind of notifications or a kind of manual, user manual, telling you what are the acceptable use of this kind of AI chatbots and what are unacceptable use of the AI chatbots, and so on and so forth. Communications. Communications is something that is like a pivotal element in any kind of operation. Operation. So what you need to do is to have a communication matrix, tells you when to communicate, how to communicate, with whom to communicate, and what are the message that you need to communicate. Communication is something that is usually conducted during normal situations, but it's really one of the major components for hard times or when there is an incident happened. So making sure that there is a communication plan in place is something that is very important, and hence this is the requirement 7.4. 7.5 is to maintain a documentation for each and every activity, not only the activity itself, but the output of the activity, and the output, the control within your AI solution. So as we will see later, logs of the AI solution, like chatbots, the training records, and the awareness records, maybe the communication messages and events that you have sent and communicated, the AI policy documentation, the, let's say, backup and restore activities, business continuity plans, each and every activity related to the AI management system needs to be documented. There is a lot of documentation here. And the, let's say, the common message here is whatever you are documenting needs to be practiced, and whatever you practice needs to be documented both ways. Okay. And one of the most common issues that we during the audit found is the discrepancies between the practice and the documentation. Usually IT team, data engineering team, whatever they are, they might found by experience some workarounds, some quick fixes, some new techniques to do things. That's okay, that's good. But what you need to do is you need to reflect this kind of new way of doing business on the processes and related policies and so on and so forth. Clause number 8, the following one is the operational controls. In this situation, what you need to do is you need to execute the action plan resulted from the risk assessment. Remember those kind of AI risks that you cannot accept, okay? Those are critical. You need to take actions to bring those risks below the acceptance level. So once you define these actions in clause number 6, you need in clause number 8 requirements here to execute it, to run it, to implement it. So implement this kind of activities and so on and so forth. Second is to have, okay, okay. Um, so I did number 2 before number 1. Number 1 is to examine based on the risk assessment what kind of controls you need to implement. As we discussed, following risk assessment exercise, you found that these are the high risk areas that I need to take some actions. These actions in reality is a kind of controls. So you may find, for instance, one of the actions, we need to update our policy. We need to upgrade our systems. We need to, let's say, hire more, let's say, data engineers, team members, and so on and so forth. These actions in reality is a kind of controls. So first of all, you need to define what kind of these controls resulted from the risk assessment and implement it. Second is to conduct and to execute this kind of actions. Third is to conduct what we called AI system impact assessment. AI system impact assessment is a tool that tells you or you need to follow in order to know what is the impact of your chosen AI solution on humans, on people, or group of peoples or communities. Example, you may decided to go for, let's say, an AI-based performance management system, as an example, within your organization. So instead of collecting KPIs, employees' KPIs manually, you may decided to go for an AI-based solution to measure the performance of your employees. In this situation, there might be an impact on the existing employees, those who are uh, concerning or assigned the responsibility of measuring the performance. You might not need them, so there is a negative impact on them. And on the same time, there might be a positive impact on the other employees because of the fairness and automated way of calculating and ranking the performance of each and everyone. So what you need to do here is you need to measure the impact on whether positive or negative, okay? And then to take some precautions, some actions in order to minimize the negative impact and to maximize the positive one. So you might think beforehand, okay, we might lay off those kind of performance management team, but before that, what we can do is let us think how can we make use from these different resources in different areas. Is there a way to upgrade their skills and make them ready to move to another positions or to do some other activities or not? If yes, then please go and do, and so on and so forth. So these are the different 4 activities within the clause number 8 operation. And as you know, this is a kind of iterative, cyclical, ongoing activities. Operation will not stop. Okay, so in this situation, you need to continuously assess your AI risks on periodic basis. You need to monitor the performance of your controls. You need to make sure that your controls are adequate to your operation. You need to continuously monitoring the impact of your AI solutions on different stakeholders. And you need, based on the risk assessment, you need to conduct the actions resulted from the risk assessment exercise. Clause number 9 is performance evaluation. For any operation, deviations will happen. This is a fact. So what we need to do is to continuously measure the distance between the best practice and the current practices within the organization itself. How can you do so? We have three different requirements here. First one is through continuous monitoring of the performance of the AI solutions, like the accuracy of your AI system, number of complaints coming from the resulted from the AI system, the what we called F1 score, or the satisfaction of the customers after using the AI chatbot, and so on and so forth. Setting some KPIs on business, operational, and technical levels. Measuring these KPIs continuously is a kind of, this is the requirement 9.1. 9.2 is to conduct internal audit activity where some independent staff can come and evaluate the existence and effectiveness of what each and every control and requirement related to ISO requirements. And then management needs to periodically review what? Review the results of the previous two activities, the results of the performance evaluation and the results of the internal audit activities, like the internal audit reports. So they need to be engaged, they need to be aligned, they need to be aware of the current underlying performance and to follow up on the actions resulted from those kind of activities. Clause number 10, which is the last clause in the requirements. This is where there are two main requirements here. First one is to have to establish a program for continual improvement. Typically, first implementation of the ISO standard will not be the best. Instead, it will be the worst. And this is normal. You cannot start your building perfect 100% from the first time. So what you need to do is to go for such implementation, okay, accept the results as is, and then try to figure out how can I upgrade myself? How can I improve my situation? How can I add more benefit and value? How can I be more accurate? How can I be more qualified, and so on and so forth. So having a continual improvement program in place, this is 10.1, the first requirement. Second requirement is to take an action for any deviations. Remember in the clause number 9, where we conducted the management review, internal audit, and evaluation, there might be a deviation. This is normal. Having a deviation in place is normal. What is abnormal is to close your eye, to blind your eye, and do not take any actions. This is what ISO is not requesting you not to do. Okay, so what you need to do according to ISO is to have a corrective actions whenever there is a kind of deviations observed for the ISO requirements or the performance of such operation within your organization itself. The second part, which is annexes part, Annex A part. Annex A comes with 38 controls. These controls are divided into 9 different categories. First category is 3 different controls related to policies, having AI policy in place. This AI policy must receive a revision on periodic basis, and so on and so forth. 2 other controls for internal organization, like having clear job descriptions, segregation of duties, roles and responsibilities. Um, Third one, 5 controls for the resources of AI system, determine whatever kind of resources, human resources, technical resources, data resources, and determine those kind of resources, to know how to get it, how to acquire it, and to document all of these required resources. Another 4 controls for AI system impact assessment, conducting the assessment, executing actions in relation to the result of the assessments, and so on and so forth. 6 for the AI system lifecycle. As I mentioned before, whether you are in the development lifecycle, on the operation lifecycle, you need to have those kind of controls in place to control the lifecycle of the AI lifecycle itself. Data management, the fuel of the AI solutions, all kind of AI solutions, there are 5 different controls to manage the data that is used for the AI training and validating and testing the AI itself. Okay. 4 different controls for to manage the information of interested parties, like sending communications to your customers, like communicating with your customers if something happened to their data, to the AI solution itself, informing your interested parties, like the regulatory authorities and customers, about the status of and the health check results of your AI solutions. Then we have 3 different controls for responsible use of AI systems, setting accountabilities and making sure that there is a human in the loop and human oversight. Then the last one, 3 different controls for how to manage the third parties and customer relationship when it comes to AI solution itself. Just an yes overview sample from the controls, Annex A controls. Like first example here is having AI policy in place, and this is a requirement as well if you remember in clause number 5. So there is a requirement and there is a control for making sure that there is an AI policy in place. Another example, another control related to roles and responsibilities, and we discussed that before. Another one related to data management, which is data provenance records. Data provenance, as you know, that usually you need to conduct some data cleansing, data normalization, and optimization for the data in order to prepare the data to be used for training or for AI solution. Such kind of changes that you are conducting against the data source itself or the original data needs to be logged and needs to be maintained so you can track back. Think about if you have like a deviation or the accuracy of the output of your AI chatbot are being, let's say, lowered than the acceptable level. You may need to know from where such kind of deviation came from. Okay. Hence, you need to track back all of the data with all of the changes that you had conducted um, um, before introducing this data set to the training or to train the AI solution. Tracking back and maintaining logs of all kind of changes that you are conducting against your data before using it for training, validation, and testing is what we call data provenance record. And this is very important to be maintained for explainability reasons and for transparency reasons as well. System impact assessment, we discussed that before. Risk assessment exercise, having AI risk assessment that is being reviewed periodically and the action plan is being conducted is another set of controls. Audit trails, making sure that the logs coming from the AI systems are being maintained. So if you remember when you are open, let's say ChatGPT, DeepSeek, whatever they are, when you type a prompt, they are displaying to you thinking and then the way they are following to build the answer for you. This is a kind of way of thinking, those kind of logs on how the AI solution reached this kind of conclusion or this kind of decision at the end of the day is something that needs to be maintained for transparency and explainability perspectives. You can imagine this is not an easy at all. This is a huge, massive amount of logs that you need to maintain for almost a year in order to be able to conform to the ISO 42001 requirements. Okay. In addition to that, testing whenever there is a training AI training cycle or validation cycle or testing cycle, you need to maintain the logs and the results coming from each and every unique training cycle or validation or testing cycle and so on and so forth. Resources, you need to have detailed documentation on the underlying required resources, specifically those who are technical resources like number of GPUs required, a number of virtual machines required, the time required for training validation, the minimum quality and the minimum acceptable quality measures, the data sources, different data sources that you need to take data, the minimum data set, number of records. All of these kind of things needs to be maintained within the resources controls. This just example of different controls among the 38, and there are more within Annex A that you can check. Some real life applications that demonstrate to you how important or how ISO 42001 helped different organizations to overcome this kind of issues. So first one, let's take an example of an AI in banking and credit scoring. In banking and fintech industry, there are a demands coming from customers, let's say, to take loans, to apply for a specific financial services, and so on and so forth. And then previously and traditionally, there were some what we call credit scoring team, those who are receive the application and conduct a manual traditional credit scoring to check the eligibility for each and every request. Nowadays, all of these kind of financial services institutes are dependent on AI solutions to evaluate these requests and their eligibility. So what are some risks associated from such using from relying on AI-based solutions to replace the human credit scoring activity? First one is unfair credit decisions. You, AI solution in some situations might reject a valid, let's say, request and might accept an invalid request as well. Those kind of unfair credit decisions usually resulted from either biased data or a biased algorithm in itself. So these are one of the risks. The second risk that usually this kind of AI systems are imposing is the non-compliance with regulatory requirements. In regulations, usually there is a clear, let's say, requirements to let's say to propose or to promote those kind of financial inclusions and to make sure that the financial leverages are available to each and every person within the community and so on. So following AI solutions, you may find yourself in a situation that you are not matching the regulatory requirements and regulatory conditions here. How can ISO 4200 helps you here? First one is, as we discussed before, there is a clear accountability for AI decisions, which means there is no AI decisions whether to accept the request or reject the request that comes without a clear accountability. So there are a human who is actually responsible on checking, monitoring, taking actions, interfere if needed to make sure that there is a fair decisions that is transparent and explainable decision for each and every request. Second is this is completely dependent on the quality of data. So having make sure that there is a clear data quality controls in place to serve the purpose of fairness, explainable and transparent AI solution is something that ISO 42001 is helping or asking you to do for. Then making sure that all of the AI operational activities are under continuous monitoring and there is a fairness evaluation where you can evaluate uh, if the decision taking by the AI is correct or not and based on what and what are the rationale and then taking actions to upgrade or to elevate or to increase the efficiency or the accuracy level and taking action if you observe that the accuracy level is getting approaching the acceptable level is something that is required as well by ISO 42001. So that can help actually minimizing the risk of the bias and unfair decisions in addition to maintain the regulatory requirements for financial institutes. Second example is something that is in healthcare. In healthcare, you can imagine that there are increasing demand on using or helping doctors by an AI self supporter. Okay, so AI supports clinical decision making or doctor decision making, such as, for instance, they can take and first and they can analyze the X-rays or MRIs or CT scans, and then they can raise some observation and maybe recommendation to doctors. Okay, they can help doctors to predict those kind of diseases. Okay, and they can actually take an decision or recommendation which patient should take prioritized activities over others. So let us assume that we have five only, let's say, places within the intensive care unit, and we have seven patients. So we need to prioritize which from those seven patients, the most critical five that we can accommodate in the intensive care unit room, and then the two either to be delayed or to be treated with a different, let's say, manner, or they can be switched or directed to another clinic or something like that. What would be some risks associated with those kind of healthcare AI supporting, let's say, machines? Incorrect or biased diagnosis. And the issue here is something that comes with life or death. If there is an biased or incorrect diagnosis for whatever diseases or the x-rays and so on, there might come with the wrong treatments, and hence the life of the patient itself will be threatened. This is in this is in contrary to the previous one. So the previous, let's say, example, if someone for whatever reasons he was eligible and for whatever reason the AI solution disregarded or rejected the application, yes, this will come with a negative impact, but not to the level of life and death. But in healthcare, it can hit directly the life of humanity and the life of the person themselves. So this is something that is very, very critical. Lack of transparency for the, let's say, decisions. This is another risk. When the AI solution, let's say, believes that this kind of, let's say, tumors are cancer-based, this must come with an transparent or detailed rationale behind it. Doctors and maybe patients cannot take the AI decisions as is. Okay, for such kind severe, impactful decision like, let's say, cancer or not a cancer. Okay, over reliance on AI recommendations is in itself is another risk because, as you know, there are hallucination within AI systems, and AI systems and all AI systems, they comes with an accuracy percentage. They are not 100% accurate in their recommendations at the end of the day. And all of these different risks are really impacting the patient's safety. Okay, hence this is something that is we cannot tolerate in. How can ISO 42001 help you herein? Having risk assessment for each and every AI solution that is used for the AI healthcare is one of the mandatory requirements, as we have seen together in clause number 6. Making sure that there is a human in the loop or a human oversight for each and every AI related activity, specifically those who are risky activities. This is one of the controls in Annex A within ISO 42001. Making sure that there is a clear transparency and explainability for doctors, for patients to know based on what this recommendation or this decision has been taken by the AI solution is another requirement in Annex A, another control within Annex A as well. Having continuous monitoring and performance evaluation. Remember clause number 9, 9.1. It is one of the requirements. So all of these AI solutions will kept under monitoring by humans while we are using them. Okay. Making sure that there is a set of accountability. Whom is accountable on what? Whom is accountable on each and every AI solution, from performance, from design, from operation, from training, from data collection, all of the aspects. Having this clarity on whom is accountable on each and every one, setting a clear accountability, and hence you can come back and see this kind of issues is a result of those kind of, let's say, activities coming from those kind of person or department. So we need to fix this issue from that point of view, and so on and so forth. There is no vague, there is no a situation where an incident happened and everyone saying that this is not my accountability, this is not part of my responsibility, and so on and so forth. So now, if you want within your organization to implement ISO 27001, typically it will take from you, depending on the scope and depending on your current situation, on average, we are talking about, let's say, between 6 to 12 months. So typically, if you have a kind of a well-matured InfoSec system, data privacy system, quality management system, and we have a competent persons, or you hired a competent consultant in the situation, usually it will take from you 4 to 6 months on average, depending on the scope. And if you are lacking any of these kind of competences and prerequisites within your organization, this may take between 6 to 12 months. Okay, so you need to account for that from timeline and from costing perspective. Okay. Um, Once you implemented the ISO 42001 and before heading toward the certification, there are some, let's say, mandatory requirements. Uh, I told you that all of the requirements, clause 4 to 10, are mandatory to be exist. That's correct. But there are some pillars um, or some go no go activities. If it is not there, then there is no go for the certification whatsoever. So from auditing perspective, there must be a clear scope documented. So scope document needs to be exist, written, documented, and approved by the management. AI policy is a no go if it does not exist. So it is must to be exist an AI policy that is approved by the top management. Risk assessment, you cannot go for certification if you are not running an risk assessment with an AI solutions. So in most cases, we found that there is a risk assessment, but without an AI related risks. AI impact assessment as well. Statement of applicability, which lists which controls of Annex A are within the scope, which are not. And then internal audit activity needs to be conducted before going to certifications, and management revision for the internal audit and performance needs to be conducted. These are the key pillars that you need to maintain for those kind of ISO certifications, among others, but those are the go no go, let's say, requirement that must exist before going to the certification itself. Okay. Establishing ISO 42001 helps you to establish a trustworthy AI management system that is transparent, that is actually promote transparency, accountability, explainability, that you can say to your customers and that you are providing a safe, reliable, consistent, fair kind of services to them. Okay. Yep. That's for this kind of session. Thank you for your listening. Thank you for joining. And if there is any kind of questions, this is the time for the questions. If you have any, please just either to speak directly and ask your question, or you can write it down on the chat box. Any questions so far? Okay, so maybe 1 more minute if there is any question that you need to ask. Okay, so if there is no question, then this is the end of this webinar. At the end, I would like to thank you all for your time and for attending this webinar. Recording of this, let's say, webinar will be published on iExperts YouTube channel. Thank you for your time. Looking forward to see you again and again in upcoming webinars. And thank you for iExperts team for hosting us and for administering and taking care of all of the logistics related to this webinar. Thank you one more time again. Good luck and good night to you all.